Well, this year the event will begin with the 2020 Python Bowl at Markham Park in Sunrise.
Florida's Wildlife Commission has also announced new prizes and plans to hire additional contractors to boost python removal from state-managed lands.
Burmese pythons have devastated the nature-based balance in South Florida, wiping out over 90% of mammals in the Everglades. To stop this invasion, experts turned to extreme measures, deploying experimental Robo-Rabbits designed to lure and trap the giant snakes. But deep in the swamps, cameras captured a stunning failure. The pythons ignored the high-tech traps completely, while the machines failed to stop the aftermath of this ecological collapse. Something else has arrived. Recent footage reveals that a new invisible force is changing the rules of the jungle. It isn't just about the giant snakes anymore. A biological twist is altering the war for the Everglades. Final fight for Florida. It wasn't just some big swamp or a place with a lot of mosquitoes. It was a massive, slow-moving river of grass that went on for 1.5 million acres. This was an ancient system that worked perfectly for thousands of years. It's so important that experts say it's worth over $31 billion every single year. It was home to alligators and beautiful birds that filled the sky like big white clouds. Life moved in a perfect balance where every animal had a place. But then, the sky turned black, and everything changed. In August of 1992, a monster storm named Hurricane Andrew tore through southern Florida. The winds were screaming at over 165 miles per hour. It flattened houses and neighborhoods in a way that's hard to believe. In all that mess, it ripped apart a place where people kept exotic snakes. When the winds stopped, an unknown number of Burmese pythons had slipped away into the wet grass. However, that storm wasn't the only reason the snakes are here. During the 90s, these snakes were the hot new pet that everyone wanted to buy. People bought them as tiny $10 babies because they thought they looked cool. But those snakes don't stay small for long. They grow very fast, and soon they become 10-foot monsters that weigh 50 pounds. Pet owners got scared and did the only thing they could think of. They drove to the edge of the swamp and let them go. They thought they were being nice, but they were actually starting a disaster.
Ban on buying or selling Burmese pythons is just one of 140 new state laws taking effect today.
For a long time, nobody really noticed what was happening. The Everglades was a perfect home for a python. It has the heat, the wet air, and a giant buffet of animals to eat. These snakes are amazing at what they do. They can hold their breath underwater for over 30 minutes and hide so well you'd walk right over them. It gets even stranger because they have heat sensors on their faces. They can see the body heat of a warm animal even in total darkness. A raccoon or a rabbit doesn't stand a chance against that. A single mom snake can lay up to 100 eggs at one time. Since no other animal was hunting them, their numbers went up fast. Today, experts think there are anywhere from 100,000 to over 300,000 pythons in Florida. The swamp that was once full of life is now getting very quiet. The numbers are so bad they sound like they're made up. A big study showed that in the worst areas, 99% of the raccoons are gone. Opossums are down by 98%. It's like they were just erased from the earth. Biologists who work there talk about the silence. They used to see animals everywhere, but now they see nothing for miles. The small animals that were the base of the food chain have been vacuumed up by these giants. The invaders found a paradise, and they're eating it all. But the real nightmare was just getting started. Machine traps failing.
I'm Coyote Peterson. Today I'm in the Florida Everglades, and I bet you'd never believe there's a 12-foot python right at my feet.
There's one big problem with trying to catch these snakes. As the silence in the swamp got louder, the state of Florida knew they had to do something. At first, it looked like a reality show on television. They started the Python Challenge where they paid people to go into the mud and find the snakes. In 2024, hundreds of people showed up with hooks and bags. They caught 195 snakes that year. The news stories made it look like a big win. But when you look at the real facts, it was almost nothing. If there are 300,000 snakes, catching a few hundred is like trying to empty a swimming pool with a spoon. The snakes were having babies faster than the humans could catch them. So the state hired professional hunters to work day and night. These people have removed over 23,000 snakes since 2017. That sounds like a lot, but it's likely less than 5% of the total population. For every snake they find, 20 more are hatching in the grass. This made Florida try high-tech war. They sent up drones with cameras that see heat, thinking they'd see the snakes from the sky. The reality, however, is complicated. The swamp is hot, the water is hot, and the ground is hot. Since pythons are cold-blooded, they look just like a warm rock to a camera. The drones were a total failure. Then they tried something even more unique called Robo-Rabbits.
Duel is being unleashed in Florida's Everglades to hunt Burmese pythons. All right, take a look at this right here. Scientists have deployed 120 robot rabbits.
These were machines built to look and act like real rabbits. They gave off heat and moved around to try and trick the pythons into coming out. It was a big mess. The pythons are smart hunters that wait for real movement and real smells. They weren't interested in noisy machines that clanked around in the mud. The footage from these experiments shows the snakes just ignoring the robots completely. The only thing that worked a little bit was using a Judas snake. They would catch a male snake, put a tracker in him, and let him go. He'd lead the humans to the large females during breeding time. But it's very slow and costs a lot of money. The hunters are now saying the snakes are getting smarter. They seem to know where the traps are, and they stay away from the paths where humans walk. It's almost like they're changing their behavior to stay hidden from us. Something much smaller was about to change everything. Tiny monsters arriving. It becomes even more concerning when you look at what the snakes brought with them. Most people think the big snake is the main problem, but there's something invisible doing even more damage. Deep in the swamp, a silent passenger arrived with the pythons. It's a tiny parasite that's changing everything in a gross way. The name is very long, but most people just call it the snake lungworm. Scientists found it by accident while they were looking at native Florida snakes. They were finding little garter snakes and rattlesnakes that were very thin and weak. When they looked inside them, it was like a horror movie. Their lungs were filled with dozens of tiny worms that were wiggling around. This lungworm comes from Asia, and the pythons carry it all the time. But the pythons are used to it, so it doesn't really hurt them. Florida's native snakes have no protection at all. The way it spreads is enough to make your skin crawl. An infected python leaves waste in the water. Then bugs eat that waste. Frogs eat the bugs, and then a native snake eats the frog. The worm babies don't stay in the stomach. They tunnel through the body and go straight to the lungs to eat blood and tissue. They fill up the air holes until the snake can't breathe anymore. Researchers have seen snakes with worms crawling out of their mouths while they struggle for air. The real shock is how far it's moved. It isn't just in the south anymore. This parasite has moved all the way north to Jacksonville. At least 18 different types of native snakes have it now. The worst part is that the lungworm doesn't even need the pythons to move around anymore. It's jumping from one native snake to another. Even if every python disappeared tomorrow, this plague would stay in the swamp. So now Florida has two big disasters at the same time. The pythons are eating the furry animals, and the worms are taking out the native reptiles. The whole system is falling apart from both ends, but there's one strange thing happening. The cottonmouth snake seems to be okay for some reason. Nobody knows why they can handle the worms better than others. Now Florida is making a move that sounds impossible. Blue king returning.
We're talking about snakes. Dozens of snakes were released into the wild in North Florida to eat other invasive snakes.
Consider a plan that sounds counterintuitive. Officials said they were going to release hundreds of more snakes into the wild to fix the problem. When people heard this on the internet, they thought it was a joke. Why would you add more snakes to a place that's already full of them? People thought it was going to be another big human mistake. Crucially, these weren't just any snakes. They were releasing the eastern indigo snake. This snake is the rightful king of the Florida forest. It's the longest native snake in North America and can grow up to 9 feet long. Its scales are a beautiful shiny blue and black color. But the most important part is what it eats. The indigo snake eats other snakes. And that's putting it lightly. It's completely protected from the venom of other snakes. It can eat rattlesnakes and copperheads without getting hurt at all. It doesn't squeeze them to death. It just grabs them with very strong jaws and swallows them whole. It's the boss of the woods. But its home had been destroyed by buildings and roads. They also need a special kind of turtle called a gopher tortoise. They live in the turtles' holes to stay safe from the weather. When the turtles lost their homes, the indigo snakes disappeared too. By the late 70s, they were gone from North Florida. So the plan was actually a very smart way to bring back a predator that belongs there. For a long time, groups have been raising these snakes in safe places. They were waiting for the right time to let them go. They started releasing them in a special forest area, and everyone was nervous. They wondered if the snakes would just die or get eaten. Then, in late 2023, trail cameras caught something amazing. They saw 2 tiny baby indigo snakes. These weren't snakes that humans let go. These were babies that were born in the wild. For the first time in 50 years, the king was having a family on its own. The plan was working better than anyone hoped. But while the king was coming back in the north, something shocking was happening down south. The native animals were done being victims. Lethal invaders.
This is the Burmese python.
Nature is starting to fight back against the invaders. While everyone was talking about the indigo snakes, the animals in the swamp were changing. In a place called Big Cypress, researchers were following a 50-pound python they named Loki. When they found his body, they were very confused. His head had been chewed off by something very strong. A camera nearby showed who did it. It was a native bobcat. This cat only weighed 25 pounds, which is half the size of the snake. But the cat had hunted and taken down the giant python anyway. This was the first time anyone had seen this happen. For 20 years, the pythons were the ones doing the hunting. Now, the home team is starting to win some rounds. Alligators are also starting to eat smaller pythons more often. Even the Florida panther has been seen taking them down. It seems like the animals that live there are finally learning where the snakes are weak. A single bobcat can't fix everything, but it shows that the fight isn't over. The pythons are still there in huge numbers, but it's no longer just a one-sided slaughter. It's a real war now. This leads to a very exciting question. Who do you think wins this final showdown in the swamp? Will the indigo snake save the state, or will the parasite win? Let me know what you think in the comments and subscribe to the Unsealed Prophecy for more mysteries, discoveries, and unsealed science.